What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is the 25th anniversary of Runaway Bride. Did you know that? I did. That's why I'm doing this review. It's on Paramount Plus and has audio description. Unfortunately, I don't know who by because I can't figure out how to turn off autoplay on Paramount Plus, which means I don't ever get through the credits on Paramount Plus. So someone did this. It actually kind of sounds like it was done a while ago. I love listening to some certain audio descriptions that actually sound like they were done like more than 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like that we've collectively done and it's followed because with how bad audio description travels, the fact that we're able to maintain a track for a certain period of time just gives me hope. You know, that the tracks that were made back in the day by like WGBH when they were like mailing video cassettes out to people who were blind, like by request, like certain films you could mail order audio description on VHS. Like maybe some of those tracks still are out there, they exist, and we can put them on films. And because I'm sure people just don't want to spend more money. They're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to spend money on a track. Great. Well, we already made some. Use them. So this exists. It's fine. Audio description track is fine. It's a female narrator. It's a rom-com. I feel like that's a nice match. She has a nice light voice. It's a nice light film. So the audio description was written, I don't know, kind of down the middle. Could it have done better? Yeah, you could go into more detail. I specifically with like her wedding dress, I was like, I feel like this is kind of a moment where like baby blind women that want to know more about her dress. But like they walk into the store and she's like, I want that $1,000 dress. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know anything about that dress. And then she's like, well, this other dress over here is $600. I don't know anything about that dress. You know, I mean, maybe they're just like, there's a white wedding dress. There's a white wedding dress. Maybe it really is that simple. I can't remember Runaway Bride. I did see this when I had sight. I actually think I've seen this film twice. This may actually be my third time watching Runaway Bride. It is the reteaming of Richard Gere and Julia Roberts after Pretty Woman with Gary Marshall, which means they brought along Hector Elizondo. He's in this too. So is Joan Cusack. And Chris Maloney is in this, making one of a handful of film appearances. You know, the whole dude spent basically his entire career on TV, either through Oz or Law and Order Special Victims Unit or whatever. But he's here playing the current love interest for Julia Roberts, who is a woman who supposedly has run away from the altar multiple times. So much so that she's become sort of a joke. And Richard Gere picks up a story about it. He hears a story at a bar and runs it without like any sort of context. Just like a drunk at a bar tells him a story. And he runs it. And instead of contextualizing and saying like, I heard a story about a woman who does this, he actually fucking names her. And then he's shocked when he gets fired. Because she writes in the letter saying that, you know, there's been a mischaracterization and she's threatening to sue the newspaper, and the newspaper fires him. And he's like, what? And it's like, we fact checking, like you have to do these things. A guy in a bar is not a source. And he's like, why? Guy in bars are great sources. So Hector Elizondo hooks him up with the potential. GQ is apparently really interested in this story. So they tell him to go out there and interview her and follow her, and she's getting married, and see if she does it again if she runs, and then he's got a story. So he gets to know her and she gets to know him, and he becomes sort of like a better person, and she becomes frustrated. And she's Chris Maloney is this athletic coach person who's all about like visualizing the end zone. So he's really about like, he knows, he's like, if I can just get her to the end zone, to the altar, you know, if we can just get to the I do stage. I'm like, why don't we just elope? You know, at this point, she's had so many weddings. Like, can she just elope? I feel like that would be the easiest thing, is to just get her in a room where she just says "I do" in front of like a justice of the peace. And nobody wants to try that though. They just keep wanting to do these big things with celebrations, and but everybody's like a douche to her about it. And I think her friend Joe Cusack is married to one of the ones that Julia Roberts ran from, which gives her some sort of like, even though she's a friend, she's friends with Julia Roberts, she's got some hangups that they hint at, but they don't really ever fully explore, like in depth, because Joan Cusack is a side character, which is sad because this is after In and Out, so she's already given like an extraordinary performance, which she got an Oscar nomination for, a rare Oscar nomination for comedic performance, and she feels buried in Runaway Bride. It feels like they saw her in In and Out and they were like, oh, we could put her in Runaway Bride. In what role? I don't know, but we could put her in it. But I don't know. I feel like there really isn't a Joan Cusack role. It's like there's always a Joan Cusack role. Just give her one. You know, there's nothing interesting about it, but she'll be fine. Um, yeah, this is just it's not Pretty Woman. It doesn't have the same sort of pizzazz to it. It kind of has a cool score, like a use of, I would say, a soundtrack. Really, the music that plays through this is a nice. It's directed by Gary Marshall, so it's fairly competently directed. It's not that bad, but it's just not Pretty Woman. I think this is what everybody wanted it to be, was Pretty Woman, and just that was, that was the selling point. They were like, oh my God, it's Richard Gere and Julia Roberts together again. It worked for Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, so there's no reason to believe it couldn't have worked for these two, to just keep having them appear opposite each other. But this film just is kind of a nothing burger of a film. It's like a cute concept, but it's like you always know where it's going. Like, you always know that ironically she's going to end up like running away to him, like at the end of the film, especially when they start making him likable. When he starts becoming a jerk and starts standing up for her and becoming likable and like a human being, and you're like, oh well, we know where this is headed. Just fast forward to the ending, please. So yeah, it's one of the most predictable rom-coms, and I'm sure people who like it for comfort food purposes, if you're a fan of Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, this is probably still in your rotation of comfort food rom-coms. I don't think it's unwatchable. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's maybe average. It's an average film that relies heavily on its talent to carry it, competently directed by Gary Marshall, with a plot that is more of a hook than an actual story. Like more of a, what if there was a unicorn? Okay, so what's the movie about? What if there was a unicorn? What if there was a runaway bride? Okay, well, what's the story? Runaway bride. Like, you just keep, you're like, that's not a plot. I know, but what if? Okay. I don't know. That's a great question. I'll think on that. But what if? Anyway, I'm gonna give Runaway Bride, I'm gonna give it a C plus. I'll give it like a slightly, if I was on a tomato meter, I would have a hard time figuring out if this was rotten or fresh. Coin toss on that. It's like right in the middle for me on that. So I'm feeling good. I'm celebrating its anniversary, so we'll go with the C plus on this. It has audio description, which is nice. Been trying to do anniversary celebrations for films that actually have audio description. So there you go. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.